Hi everyone. For our group project, we are going to be analyzing racial disparities in COVID-19 death rates. Before we get started, let me introduce our group. My name is Andrew.
My name is Max Arzumanov.
And my name is Jaspreet Rampuri.
First, we should talk about our motivation for our project. On June 9th, 2022, David Leonhardt, writing in the New York Times, claimed that the COVID death rate for white Americans had recently exceeded the rates for black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans. This ignited controversy among public health experts. Generally, they claimed that Leonhardt's article was misleading as he failed to adjust for age. To give one example, Greg Gonsalves, an epidemiologist and associate professor at the Yale School of Public Health, stated, "This piece by David Leonhardt is just wrong. Why? Age adjustment." Seeing this, we decided this would be a good topic to investigate and determine which side of the argument was correct.
We decided that these four questions were the most important pertaining to our goals. Number 1, how have racial gaps in death rates changed over time? Number 2, does adjusting for age change the racial gaps in COVID deaths? Number 3, how do vaccination rates differ by race? And number 4, are the trends we find likely to continue? The first question we sought to answer was how have racial gaps in death rates changed over time? Finding this out took file processing, data wrangling, and plotting data over time. Research question 2 required an age adjustment formula that weighed age groups and used direct age adjustment to determine if adjusting for race changed the racial gaps in COVID deaths. With research question 3, we wanted to see how vaccination rates differ by race. This took some analysis of vaccination rate data frames and also plotting of this data by age group. Our fourth research question was if the trends we find are likely to continue, but after deliberation, we decided not to create machine learning for this because the trends followed a very stable pattern toward the decline of the pandemic. Organizing the population dataset took some work in data processing. We began with taking 3 datasets of census data that was divided by race. Then we organized the data into bins by age group, and third, we grouped the filtered data of population into age and race. Finally, we produced a table with values of population by race grouped by age. The process of calculating age weight was quite unique to anything we had completed in class. We took the COVID-19 death count dataset, cleaned, organized, and renamed it to match the race variable names used for the population dataset. The age weight was calculated by dividing the total population for each age column by the overall sum total population. The age weight column was merged with the age group column to create this table. Next, we'll go into the death rate over time by race.
For research question 1, we determined that Leonhardt's initial claim seems to be correct. The unadjusted COVID death rates have converged, and the convergence occurs recently. Restricting our view to more recent months clearly shows when the change happened. At some time around April 2022, white COVID death rates overtook COVID death rates of other racial groups in America. This trend remains even after the article's publication up to the present.
Most of Leonhardt's detractors claimed that adjusting for age would reverse this trend. In order to check this, we used direct age adjustment in order to normalize age distributions. We then calculated and plotted the age-adjusted COVID rate and found that it did not change much, as the gap closed around the same time period. Again, we restricted our view to recent months in order to see exactly when the change happened, and found that it occurred only slightly later when compared to the unadjusted plot. This means that, contrary to what many who critiqued Leonhardt's article claimed, adjusting for age did not affect the trend, and at best it simply delays when white death rates became the highest. Another way we looked at this is by plotting the share of COVID deaths by race. In this plot, we can see that the white share of COVID deaths has been increasing over time. With this graph, we can clearly see that adjusting for age would not affect the overall trend, since age structures would not have changed in any meaningful way in the short time frame. Splitting the data by age shows us that this closure of the gap is driven by increased COVID death rates among older white Americans. COVID death rates among black and Hispanic Americans who are younger are still generally higher than white Americans. However, since the rate of COVID deaths is very low among all young people of all races, this does not have much of an effect on the overall trend. To show the death by race and age in another way, we also plotted the sum of COVID deaths per million in recent months on this heat map. This more clearly shows that the trend is being driven by higher COVID deaths in white Americans. Next, I'll hand it to Jaspreet to talk about how vaccination rates differ by race.
The vaccination rate over time seems to be increasing for all 3 age groups that have been plotted. The other and multiple races trend seems to include uncertainty because of all the data that is incorporated in one trend line. The 18 to 49-year age group seems to follow an increasing trend line for all other races beside other and multiple races. The trend line starts at different percentages of vaccinated, indicating that younger group had a higher vaccination rate in 2021. This could also include the people in the medical industry who needed to be vaccinated. The 50 to 64-year age group and 65-plus age group are considered to be pretty similar because of how vaccination was encouraged for older individuals. The white race vaccination increased based on age compared to the other races, whereas the Hispanic race was much more consistent.
Though we weren't able to complete a rigorous analysis to answer research question 4, Our data does show that the trend of the white COVID death rate overtaking non-white COVID death rates has held since Leon Hart's publishing of his article in June. This implies that the trend may be robust, however, we cannot say with any serious definity what will happen in the future. Some potential improvements this project could have seen could include an in-depth analysis of each plot and taking a closer look at small differences. We also could have used a few more different plots to visualize the data and use different calculations and comparisons, including population and race. We'd also have liked to explore data more and see if machine learning could help predict how these rates would change in the future, as well as seeing if those trends differ by race and how directly they are correlated to vaccination rates.